It is officially 2 weeks until I publish my upcoming horror novel, I Do Not Sleep. I have released the title, the synopsis, the book cover, and some of the themes I've mentioned on Instagram, but in today's video I'm basically just going to be diving deep into the characters and everything else and giving you more of an idea of what this novel is about, what to expect. This is my first horror novel that I've ever written, or completed at least, so it's a little bit of a diversion from what I've published prior to this, which has been, well, I won't count my debut, but I've released a dystopian novel and a soft sci-fi suspense. So yeah, this is something a bit different. I'm really proud of it. It's taken me 2 years to complete, which is the fastest I've ever completed a book to publication standard. And the only reason for that is because I was previously working a job where I had a lot of free time on my hands, which is very lucky, and I was able to draft pretty much all of this novel just in little sort of A6 notebooks, and I got most of it done in about 6 months to a year, and then I've just been editing it ever since. Yeah, it usually takes me at least 2 years to get to a stage where I can start editing, but in this case it's been quite a lot faster. The only trouble is now I'm not working that job anymore, so yeah, I'm gonna have to find another way to get that same amount of writing done for my next novel without being perpetually distracted, which is always an issue. But yeah, so I've made a list of notes so I don't miss anything. I've also got my laptop to refer to in terms of like the synopsis and making sure I mention everything, because sometimes I just go blank. I'm gonna try to be spoiler free, but I can edit this afterwards and delete anything if it's like way too spoilery. So before I begin, I will just mention I am currently in the process of designing a book trailer, so I hope to get this done in the next couple of months. It's going to take a lot longer just because I'm still deep in the final beta edits, and that needs a lot of footage and props and stuff that I don't currently have at my disposal. That is my plan though. I would like to make a book trailer. I've designed the sound track technically, so it's just a case of filling in the gaps with footage. Next week I'm going to be releasing chapters 1 to 3 in audio book format. It's not an official audiobook, it's just me reading it, but I'm going to release that next week. I'll film another video obviously to come out on release day. Release day is the 29th of November, in case I hadn't mentioned that already. I guess we can begin with a 1-paragraph pitch, which is what agents always ask you to present your novel as. If you are trying to traditionally publish, it's a good idea to have a 1-paragraph or even a 1-sentence pitch for your novel. So for my novel, I have got it down as a poignant portrayal of grief and brotherhood that explores the downfalls of desire, the complexities of friendship, and the nature of consciousness. I also have a slightly longer pitch that I've got down as left reeling from the death of a close friend, anxious diabetic Ollie Headley ends up delving into the occult, inadvertently destabilizing the laws of nature and unleashing a malevolent presence eager to return from beyond the grave. So those are my 2 alternative pitches to give you a very quick gist of what to expect from this novel. It's a work of adult horror, although technically it's new adult. I still don't know if that's a term that's recognised by bookstores and that type of thing. If I'm able to market it as new adult, I will do, because the target age group is technically 18 to 25, within that bracket, more or less. The main characters are all 24. Adults can read it. It's not like a juvenile book by any means, but it's technically intended towards that sort of age group, just so you know. Yeah, a work of adult horror that leans upmarket in its exploration of the complexities of friendship and grief and everything else. Yeah, it kind of treads a line between genre, being the horror, psychological horror, folk horror, and upmarket fiction, which leans more literary. Upmarket is basically a hybrid between normal genre fiction and literary fiction. So you usually find books that are quite character focused sometimes lean upmarket, which my books tend to, and that's not me saying they're works of literary genius, like hell no, but yeah, upmarket tends to be that sort of middling genre that ties the two together, which I think this novel does. It's very character focused. It's not like action from the get-go. You get to know the characters first, which is just something that I do with my novels. I can't write a novel that just deals with action. I need to establish a solid cast of characters, especially the main character. I want to get to know them. I want the reader to get to know them. Yeah, it's definitely leans upmarket, but it is still very much rooted in the horror genre. So the themes, I did stick like a post on Instagram, as I said, that talks about pretty much all of the themes you can expect from this novel. Some of the main ones, I guess, include friendship, brotherhood, family, loss, grief, mythology, spirituality, myths and legends, drugs, the environment, pollutions, mushrooms, and the nature of consciousness. I'll put a whole bunch of stuff on the screen to illustrate that point. This book covers a lot. It's kind of hard to sum it up without sort of disregarding some of the things that happen, because in the beginning it reads very like standard fiction. This is a novel about a grieving young man whose best friend has died in a hit and run, but as the novel progresses, things get more and more uncanny, I suppose you could say. You get the magic realism or the supernatural element, paranormal, supernatural. I'm still not quite sure on the boundaries of what's what there, but things get a bit demonic, things get quite dark, things go downhill. You have to find out in the end whether things are resolved or not, but it's like a novel that it isn't what it seems, although I'm hoping in this video to give you an overall idea of what to expect without delivering too many spoilers. Comparison titles, I guess I could put a few of those up. Themes of grief, I suppose the most natural comparison would be Pet Sematary. We're not dealing with the death of a child, we're dealing with the death of a best friend slash brother, but you could argue that there are some comparable themes, like in terms of the main character being driven to distraction by his grief. He's so desperate for closure. In the wake of this hit and run, he didn't get to see his best friend's body. He does start going down some unexpected pathways, and yes, I suppose that's the most logical comparison. Starvacre is another one, deals with grief. Once again, it's the grief of a child, but that one is set in the English countryside, I believe, so a little bit more of a tie there, where my novel's also set in the English countryside, combination of Hampshire and Wiltshire. I put The Willows as another comp title by Algernon Blackwood. I found his description of nature and of the trees and of their sort of eerie, uncanny sentience that is woven throughout. I suppose it's like a looser link with mine, but there's a sense of nature being sentient and there being something subliminal at play that you aren't totally sure exactly what it is. There are trees and mushrooms and mycelial network and this greater intelligence that appears to the main character in a dream. Many dreams. There's a lot of dreams in this novel. It's quite a surreal book. But yeah, I suppose The Willows, the closest I could think of in terms of nature being an unnerving force throughout the novel. I have not read A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, but one of my beta readers has said that they would put A Monster Calls as another comp title together with Lanny by Max Porter. I guess Devil's Day by Andrew Michael Hurley also deals with rural countryside being a destructive force in and of itself, and there being something devilish, demonic. You don't quite know what it is, but there's something there throughout, but that's more of a tenuous link. But yeah, those are my comp titles, just to give you some idea of books in the real world that might relate to mine. So yeah, with that said, I guess we can delve into synopsis and go from there. The story begins with my main character, Ollie Headley, driving to this house. It's a family house. It was his grandmother's. It's a bit run down and neglected. It's out in the countryside, and he's decided to take on the responsibility of renovating it, to work through his grief alone. He wants to be by himself, just to think about things and try and come to terms with the fact that he has no closure, because as I mentioned already, his best friend Bran Pritchard died in a hit and run, so he is coming to terms with the fact that there was no opportunity for him to see his friend, at least at the scene of the crash, sort of dealing with that sudden severance, and he's struggling with that a great deal. So he decides to drive out into the country, do up this home over the winter, and then his parents plan to sell it in the spring. So he thinks, I'm going to do the painting and the decorating, and it's going to be like something that I can do physically to keep me busy, keep my thoughts from wandering. There's a tendency towards depression, existential depression. He's going through this whole crisis. As the synopsis mentions, there is an unexpected encounter in the woods. This house is basically surrounded by dense woodland, which he is at first quite intimidated by. He likes the idea of living in nature, and his best friend who died, Bran, was very much into nature. Nature was his whole life. He used to wander out there for hours. He would bond with Ollie over nature, but Now that he's here, Ollie realizes that nature and the trees, the forest, makes him feel very small and very alone. The smell of rot and of the earth and the trees kind of brings to the forefront his fear of death, which is a theme that runs throughout this novel. He's terrified of death. He cannot stop thinking about it. It's this constant in the back of his mind. So he has this encounter in the woods. He meets this other character who has a great deal of knowledge, we'll say, of occultish things for reasons that will become clear. He has had time to hone herbology. He knows a great deal about the plants and the mushrooms and things that grow in the woods and what you can use to achieve certain goals. For example, there's a specific plant that he claims can wake the dead. So Ollie takes note of this and ends up forming a kind of alliance with this character and decides that he is just gonna dive headfirst into this path and see where it leads him. He's like, what could possibly be worse? I've suffered through this grief, this loss. What can be worse? I want to see where the path ends. I want to see where it takes me. So he ends up joining forces with this other character. It leads him to some unexpected places. So he meets another character, a spirit, who informs him that centuries ago this rift was created by the actions of another character who will appear later in the novel. And his late friend Bran unintentionally widened this rift so that now the mycelial network that keeps the dead in their graves and the cycle of growth and decay moving as it should is now no longer able to keep things in check. So the dead are starting to rise from their graves, which is now Ollie's burden to bear, along with his friend that he's made in the woods. They have to figure out a way of dealing with this unexpected complication to their overall mission, which is for Ollie to see Bran again. And he learns a lot of things about his late friend along the way. This novel very much deals with secrets and loyalty, brotherhood. Ollie also has another friend, Darcy, who is struggling with addiction, certainly in the wake of the funeral, and Ollie has to sort of work through the guilt of his own actions. He knows that what he wants to do is wrong. He shouldn't have delved into the occult. He knows that the character he's formed this alliance with is not entirely selfless. He has his own reasons for using Ollie in turn. Ollie has to sort of keep a lookout for Darcy and at the same time grapple with the fact that Bran kept a lot of secrets from him throughout his life. And he ends up getting his hands on Bran's journal, which talks all about his interactions with nature, some of which come as a surprise, some of which sort of don't. Ollie realizes he missed some of the signs to tell him that Bran was dabbling in, well, darker endeavors than he realized is what the spirit tells Ollie. It's very much Ollie coming to terms with the fact that people keep secrets. He didn't know everything about his best friend, and now he's going down the very same path that may or may not have landed Bran in trouble in the first place. I suppose this is where the story delves into the whole spiritual awakening side, which is another theme in this book. Ollie has to recognize that he has desires that are unhealthy. He has attachments that are causing him a great deal of pain. He has to navigate this careful path between seeing the person he lost again and pursuing a path of non-attachment to the things that are impermanent. Yeah, it's like a tricky sort of inner battle that he's going through this entire time. So later on in the novel, the stakes are raised. As I said, the dead have started to awaken, and this is very much exemplified by the fact that Ollie has formed this alliance with this other character. His actions have very much contributed to this imbalance in nature, and he knows that the only way to make things right is to forsake his alliance and pursue a path towards true peace, true inner spiritual peace. And he just doesn't know if he's strong enough. He is constantly doubting himself. He's constantly wavering between wanting to see his friend again, wanting to have that closure that he feels he desperately needs, and living in the moment and not lamenting the past, not thinking about death in the future, nostalgia and his fears. And it's difficult to sum this novel up in so many words because it's horror, it's spirituality, it's nature. There are themes of environmental pollution. He comes in contact with certain spirits and entities that reiterate the fact that there are things going on out there in nature that is further imbalancing things, and mankind has a lot to answer for in that respect. There are myths and legends, local folklore. This is an introspective, character-focused, upmarket-leaning folk slash psychological horror. I suppose that technically sums it up in as succinct a way as I can manage. Very much rooted in the natural environment, forest, the fungal network, the trees, the smells, death, life. That's the entirety of what knits the story together, I guess you could say. There are spirits, there are demons, there's a sort of a greater intelligence that sits above all things, that seems to be communicating to Ollie in his dreams. He doesn't really know if he can trust it. He has to rely on his intuition, but not always, because he makes mistakes. He's a flawed character. All of my characters are flawed characters. There's a lot of moral grey area. They all make mistakes, they all do stupid things. I do have, if you're interested, I have put up on Instagram and X, because I have both accounts, I've put up some small biographies of my three main characters, the three friends. I didn't want to undermine the gravitas of this novel by making these fun little biographies for each character because it is quite a serious novel. But yeah, I had quite a lot of fun making them, so if you want to find out a little bit more about each individual character, you can check out my links below. Yeah, as I said, next week I will be uploading audio for chapter 1 through 3, at least the first 3 chapters, to give you an idea of the tone of the story. And after that it'll be publication time. I think that's everything I had to mention. Hopefully this didn't turn out too long and convoluted, but yeah, basically that's some of the themes and subjects that this novel encompasses. Yeah, last but not least, my current proof copy I'm working on. I'm still figuring out the colour system, because KDP has like a weird thing where they print some of their books more blue and some more grey, so I'm trying to figure out a hybrid between the two that no matter which printing press they use, it's going to end up more blue. This one's a little bit too grey. I don't quite know what the deal is with that, but I just want to make sure that the cover reflects the digital version of it. So I am working my way through my final beta edits at the moment. Then I have one more read through of a physical copy myself, and then that's it. It's basically ready for publication. And yeah, hopefully this video might have whetted your appetite for some psychological slash folk horror. I don't know where exactly this book fits in the overarching horror genre. It's very much its own thing. But yeah, hopefully I was able to at least sum it up for you relatively well. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you shortly in my next video.